Hello everybody and welcome back. I really hope you enjoyed today's video. It is going to be on a cult called the Branch Davidians. So I'm going to start doing a disclaimer. I do not mean any offense or anything to any of the victims or anyone that was involved in this. I am just interested in it, so I am sharing what I've learned. Remember to subscribe, tell me how I did, and comment down below what you want me to do for my next videos. I really hope you enjoy, and let's get into it.
Look like the Son of God? No one thought so, except a few people in his day.
Just a sort of summary of who David Koresh was. He believed he was the final prophet of the Branch Davidians, which was a religious movement at the time. He turned the Branch Davidians into more of a cult. His followers believed that he was the final prophet. David Koresh was born Vernon Wayne Howell, and his life before joining the Branch Davidians was a difficult one. His mother was just 14 when he had David, and his father disappeared before he was born. His new mother's boyfriend was prone to violent outbursts and a drinking problem. That meant David spent long stretches of time with his grandmother, who put him in special education because of his dyslexia. Lonely and miserable, he dropped out of high school at the age of 17 and joined his mother's church, the Seventh-day Adventist group. There he fell in love with his pastor's daughter, and he used a Bible verse to claim to her father that God wanted the girl to be his mate. The pastor expelled him from the church and was like, no. Still yearning for some kind of spiritual connection, David Koresh moved to Waco, Texas, and joined Branch of Davidians at age 21. The Branch of Davidian was also linked to the Seventh-day Adventists, led by Ben Rawdon, who promised that Christ would return. That was the main belief of the Davidians, that Christ would return, and that's what they prepared for. When Ben Rawdon died, his wife Lois took on leadership of the church, becoming the group's prophetess. Even though she was 65 and Koresh was 21, the new widow entered into a sexual relationship with Koresh, which gave him the power to move up quickly through the ranks of the church. Lois allowed Koresh to begin teaching his own messages. With his non-stop preaching, there was suddenly a new contender for the church's top job, the prophet. When Lois died, Koresh took over. When Koresh took power, this raised more than a few eyebrows, and not only because some members of the congregation were having trouble getting on board with ideas, the problem was Lois's son, George Rawdon. He considered himself the rightful heir to the Mount Carmel and the congregation, and he fully intended to take over for his parents upon their deaths. This created tension in the church between Koresh and Rawdon. Koresh claimed that God had ordained that he should have had a child with Lois. That idea outraged and revolted George. Before long, their power struggle became to consume this church, and the Branch Davidians were forced to take sides. When Rawdon got the upper hand, he forced Koresh and his most devoted followers off Mount Carmel property at gunpoint. After he was forced out, he became more bizarre. He convinced himself he was having conversations with God and that he must return to Mount Carmel. Around the time that Koresh was planning his reappearance at Mount Carmel, the Branch Davidians were losing faith in George Rawdon. Rawdon had remade Mount Carmel in his own image, calling it Rawdonville, and acting like a dictator. By the time Koresh returned, Rawdon's followers were ready for mutiny. Rawdon, panicked by his old enemy's reappearance, he went to drastic measures to secure his congregation's loyalty. He challenged Koresh to an astonishing contest. Whichever man could raise the dead would be the rightful spiritual leader of the Branch Davidians. But Koresh had other plans. While Rawdon was exhuming and praying over the corpse of the woman who had been in the ground for 20 years, David Koresh was chatting to the local authorities, who he felt would be interested to learn about Rawdon's illegal grave digging. When he got there, Koresh was in camouflage. He had an invasion map and he had gathered lots of weapons. He met heavily armed Rawdon as well, and a fight broke out. Rawdon was injured, though not fatally. When Koresh and his followers were put on trial for the attack, it wasn't the first time the courts had seen the Branch Davidians. George Rawdon had attempted to file his rival out of the church several years earlier when he had claimed in a lawsuit that Koresh had raped and brainwashed his mother. They were found innocent when Rawdon was charged with the murder after he killed his roommate, Wayman Adder, with an axe. He believed the man was an assassin in the pay of David Koresh. Rawdon was actually found not guilty, but only because the jury ruled him as insane and sent him to a mental hospital. With Rawdon gone, Koresh claimed Mount Carmel for his own. Koresh began putting new rules in for his followers and letting old ones, especially the legal ones, fall away. He encouraged marriages between men and multiple women, as well as marriages to underage girls, and engaged in sexual relationships with not only his wife, but his wife's 13-year-old sister. After claims of child abuse appeared in the newspapers, Texas Child Protective Services investigated Mount Carmel. Koresh covered the abuse by assigning false husbands to all of the women and teaching children not to mention what happened within the walls. For 3 years, David Koresh ran his kingdom, teaching his controversial messages and encouraging his disturbing practices. On February 28, 1993, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms raided the compound. The day before, they had received word that Koresh was physically abusing children, engaging in polygamy, and stockpiling illegal weapons inside the compound's walls. Koresh's brother-in-law, a local postal worker, had tipped Koresh off about the raid after a journalist had asked him for directions to Mount Carmel. Koresh was able to prepare. He asked the men to arm themselves and the women to take shelter. To this day, nobody knows who started the firefight. The ATF agents claim they only fired in response to the shots that came from inside the compound. The Branch Davidian survivors claim that the first shots came from the ATF agents. It would be 51 days before it ended in absolute catastrophe. The ATF failed to get the Branch of Davidians out. 4 ATF agents and 5 Branch Davidians were dead. Then the FBI was called in. David Koresh and a few other Branch Davidians had given phone interviews to several local news outfits. I tried to find them, but I couldn't. As soon as the FBI arrived, they cut all communication to Mount Carmel. The only way to reach the outside world was through a team of 25 FBI negotiators. He sent out videos to the FBI as proof that the members of his congregation were not hostages, but holdouts who were staying there of their own accord. Koresh himself appeared in the videos, introducing his seemingly happy children and wives to negotiators. Despite the videos, the FBI became increasingly anxious and aggressive in their approach, believing that the only way to get everyone out safely was with force.
ATF, you boys are wrong. And if there's any question whatsoever that kids or women are involved, damn you, I tell you what, you keep your damn gun in your holster. You got to argue with me, you catch me on the side of the road somewhere, you come and argue with me. You come point guns in the direction of my wives and my kids, I'll meet you at the door any time. And I'm sorry some of you guys got shot. But, hey, God will have to sort that out, won't he?
Over the days, at least 21 children were released from Mount Carmel into FBI custody. Through interviews conducted by the FBI, law enforcement officials realized the children had been abused for years, not just recently as the first reports. Horrified by this, the U.S. Attorney General Janet Reneo approved the FBI's request to mount an assault. On April 19, 1993, 51 days after the ATF descended, the FBI attacked the compound. They used combat engineering vehicles to blow holes in the side of the buildings. Tear gas was put through the holes, so was flammable liquid. When the Branch Davidians fired upon the agents, the FBI responded with grenades and more rounds of tear gas. After a few hours after the tear gas was launched, 3 fires broke out in different parts of the compound, and an explosion occurred. The explosion has been a controversy. Many people believe that the Branch Davidians themselves used accelerants and set the fires, while some Branch Davidian survivors allege that the fires started accidentally as a result of the FBI's attack. Despite the fires and the tear gas, only 35 Davidians left their compound on their own terms. 76 people, including 25 children, died within the walls as a result of the smoke inhalation, burns, cave-ins, or gunshot wounds. The FBI revealed at the end of the Waco Siege that David Koresh had been found dead, apparently suicide. Over 80 people lost their lives due to this shootout. Anyone who entered this building did not come out alive. You can see this officer getting shot at through the wall. Luckily, he made it down the ladder and was safe. Though the FBI attacks were well documented, a lot of stuff remains unknown. particularly who started the shootout, the fires, who started that. Many people are left wondering, what did David Koresh tell his followers? Why had he kept them from leaving, even when their lives were at stake? How had he gone from negotiating with the FBI to refusing to let his juvenile followers out of the burning building? And finally, did David Koresh kill himself? Many people believe he is either still alive or someone else did it. Right, that is the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed. Sorry, it was quite a long video this time. It went on, but I wanted to make sure that I got all of the details that I needed to. Like I usually do, here is a movie that you can watch. It's only the really one I could find, but I know there's tons of documentaries as well that you can watch on this. So I really hope you enjoyed. Make sure you follow my Instagram and subscribe for more content.